Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Speaking of Courage podcast, back in your life. What's going on, everybody? What's going on, Chase?
Same old stuff, man. Not
Same
too hot today, so we're
dang.
doing all right.
A lot of stuff going on in the Middle East.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Have you been following it at all?
Nothing good. I follow it, but I don't.
What's your take?
I don't generally discuss current events.
No?
Yeah. It's not good.
But like
I'll put it that
militarily.
way. It's not good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How similar is this to Vietnam? We've talked about Vietnam.
In a lot of ways, it's strikingly similar, except for it's much more rapid. That was the big shock to everybody. But
Is it Saigon?
Saigon.
Saigon.
Yeah.
Saigon was a slower process?
yeah, well, we pulled out in 73 combat troops, and Saigon was overrun in 75. So there was.
Oh,
a good
wow.
amount of time.
So this is just a faster...
This is the fastest collapse in the history of the world, as far as I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been pretty
Tragic.
crazy to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we headed today?
Try to figure it out, Donnie.
Vietnam?
Yeah, nope.
No. Korea?
Nah,
Or,
man, you strike out. World War II, Pacific.
Really?
Yeah, these are the herringbone twills. We're doing the Pacific War on World
I
War
suck.
II. Yeah, it's all good. It looks similar to the Vietnam because
Yeah.
of the green fatigues and everything like that. There's a few clues you can find, but
World War II. What?
greatest fighting force in the history of the world. Who's that going to be? First Cavalry Division.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Where at, though?
This is going to be Los Negros Island, the Admiralties Islands,
Pacific?
as they're called. Yeah, the Pacific. It's going to be near New Guinea.
God damn it. Test. That was weird.
Yeah,
New
mine
Guinea,
cut
so
out a
that's the
little bit, too.
Pacific
Yeah.
front?
Correct.
Is that what it's called? Pacific, what do you call it?
Pacific Theater of Operations, the PTO, as they officially call it.
And who's the hero of the day?
All right, so today we're doing a gentleman by the name of Troy McGill.
Troy McGill.
Troy
Okay.
McGill, yeah, and he's going to be born in 1914, July 5th, in the Mount Olive community of Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so Tennessee-born, Southern kid. Like a lot of these guys, his parents are going to be farmers, good family group, but they're going to kind of have that hard scrabble life,
Yeah.
working odd jobs and working on the farm. He actually has 4 sisters and 6 brothers, so they're going to have a big family.
Big
and
old
they're going to
family.
live in Mount Olive, that Knoxville, Tennessee area, until later they're going to move to Texas, to Kilgore, Texas, I believe.
Southern family.
Yeah, big Southern family in the early teens, into the 1920s and everything. So you can think about that kind of lifestyle.
Is he the
and that would
oldest?
No, he's going to be one of the middle kids.
Middle kid.
And this is going to be one of those families that's so big and so spread out that there's going to be cousins all over the place,
Right.
and you're going to have uncles and aunts that are similar ages and stuff. So you're just going to have, a lot of people around that are your kinfolk and everything.
Yeah.
So he's going to be in the middle of that group. So
Okay.
at somewhere. I'm not sure which one he actually
He's got
was.
olders, he's got youngers. He's kind
Exactly.
of probably the quiet one trying to fight for attention.
Some of your uncles are the same age as you. Some of your nephews are the same age as you. Your brothers and sisters. You're just spread all out.
Is this
to those
farm
big
life?
families. Yeah, farm life, again, in Tennessee. And then it's kind of rough looking for work. Dad would be working odd jobs. All the kids would be helping out and everything. But they had the family farm. And then, again, they're going to move to Kilgore, Texas.
Kilgore, Texas. Where's that?
I don't know where Kilgore's at.
That's one I haven't heard of.
Yeah, it's probably one of those tiny little dots
Yeah.
somewhere. Just
Church,
wherever
bar,
people can go to
cemetery.
work, pretty much. Just the daily life, just being how it is. They ended up while he was going to school, he played football, so he's going to be one of those tough kids. I don't know if he actually graduated high school. His enlistment form says that he has 1 year of high school, but sometimes those are inaccurate.
Yeah.
So he may or may not have. But he was a football player. And his nephew described him as a raw-boned country boy who was sort of soft-spoken and would do anything for you. So that's a good description of him. He's tough, he's hardy. These are going to be those kids that don't complain about everything. They can work from sunup to sundown, and just that's they
Up
accept,
before dawn?
Right. They accept that that's their life. But he's also good-hearted, as he's always described as. He would always do anything for you. When he was older, when he was grown, he ended up moving back to Tennessee. He always considered Tennessee his home, even though he ends up kind of moving around the country for work, but Tennessee's always going to be kind of his home base.
Knoxville.
If you've ever been to Tennessee?
I haven't.
Yeah, it's beautiful over
Is
there.
it?
Yeah, my dad's side of the family's from Kentucky, and we went through Tennessee and all.
I love the South, man.
Yeah, it's a cool place.
I really like everybody just so nice, man.
Yeah.
It's just a real down home
Beautiful
place.
country,
Yes.
a little bit slower lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's nice. I got some friends back there, but yeah. So he goes back to Tennessee. It's easy to see why you would want to kind
Of
of go
course.
back to that.
Especially if you grew
lifestyle.
up there, right?
Exactly. In 1936, his dad actually died when he was around 22 years old. So this is going to be the height of the Depression now, right?
Man.
So this big family, all the nephews, all the brothers, everybody, you're going to be going where the work is. It's not going to be as tight as it was before. And then his mom died, so now he's kind of adrift, right? So he and his brothers, they ended up looking for work, so he ended up moving to Oklahoma, working as a wildcatter in the oil fields, which is one of those tough and dangerous jobs. They're basically like, think of it like a prospector. They're going out and looking for these places to drill to try to find oil. They're like speculating, if that makes sense. But the oil fields are very dangerous places to work. Wildcatters, they drill wildcat wells. They're exploratory wells in areas not known that are outside of the oil fields, basically.
Okay.
But it's
trying to find new wells.
Yeah, even today, guys that work in the oil fields, they work their asses off. They're in a lot of danger, and they make good money for that rough style work. So on the one hand, you can see what kind of person he is, that he's willing to do that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, it shows you how kind of desperate the times are, that you're just kind of drifting around, looking for work, taking whatever work comes, even if it's extremely dangerous, you know? According to his draft registration, it also said that, or his enlistment paperwork, it said he worked as a boiler fireman and a truck driver in Flora, Illinois as well. So he's going to be doing all kinds of odd jobs, just looking for work, which is kind of a sad representation of the country at the time.
Yeah.
You know, especially somebody coming from a big family like that and having those roots, and now your roots are...
Do they have a family farm? Or?
No, they don't have anything that they can go back to
base.
and call home. They have no base at this point.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Both his parents are dead. The brothers seem to be kind of sticking together, but they're moving around. You know, it's a rough life. You're not going to be getting married and having kids because you don't have a whole lot to your name other than what you carry on you, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like I said, though, he always moved around, but he always considered Tennessee his home. In 1940, he actually joined the Army on November 6, 1940, and part of that was looking for opportunity. Like, this is a good career, this is a good, stable place to be. So this is a year before Pearl Harbor. He's actually going to enlist. So I'm sure there was some element of serving your country and patriotism, but a big part of it was that financial stability.
I was going to say, dude, I wonder how much coming out of the Depression, how, like you said, everyone's going chasing around the country, odd end jobs, trying to scrape money together, and then, man, you look at the military. It's,
well, the military was much smaller at the time. It wasn't as easy to get into.
But you get your food every day.
Yeah,
you have a roof over the head. You got a constant paycheck.
All you got to do is do what you're told, be where you're supposed to be. And if you're a tough farm kid or if you've been on the CCC or anything like that, it's very, very doable.
I don't remember who we did a couple episodes ago where they were talking about how he loved the food. It's like, oh my God, this is awesome.
There's a few of them. They show up and they're like, wow, I actually get a full set of clothes and a full meal every day. And it's all over the country. Like, people were like fighting to get into the National Guard at some point. So because of that, you're guaranteed money, your federal pay. They're taking care of you in a sense. And some of these guys have never been to the dentist, and now they're getting dental care, or they're never getting their checkups, and now they're getting that kind of stuff. They might even get eyeglasses that they've never had, you know. So it's a weird world in that sense. It's sad that was necessary, but it's good that opportunity.
So did our military grow insanely during that period?
Oh, it ballooned out of control. If you look at the number, but I don't know that prior to World War II, the country of Romania had a larger army than we did.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we were like the 23rd or something largest army in the world. We were very tiny. By the end of the war, we were massive. We were one of the biggest armies in the world by manpower and by equipment. You know, we were the arsenal of democracy. But yeah, prior to going into World War II, we weren't like we are now, where a huge percentage of our budget is spent on the military. We were tiny. The training leading up to World War II after Pearl Harbor, we didn't have enough training tools, so guys were using broomsticks to pretend like rifles, and we were throwing sacks of flour for grenades, and, you know, they were driving around in little cars and stuff. They were driving around in little cars with, like, wooden tanks on the side to emulate a tank, because we didn't have the manpower, we didn't have the equipment. When the Philippines fell, when the Japanese started attacking, everybody ran and they started unloading the ammo crates, and they were dated 1918, and they were getting World War I rifles to use, and this was 1941. So
so we had some catching up to do.
We definitely had some catching up to do.
Wow, man.
Yeah, so Troy's going to go in the Army. He's 26 years old at this time, and this is November 6, 1940. So he's 5'8", 145 pounds per his enlistment information, which is good size.
Pretty average.
That's average. It's, bigger. He weighed more than I did when I went in. I think I was 5'9", 123, so
Jesus,
a bit
dude.
smaller. Yeah, but the Army suited him like a lot of these guys. He had always been fascinated with the cavalry. That was 1st Cavalry Division. That's what we were talking about. Cavalry is essentially horse-mounted soldier, right? So at the time, there was still cavalry. The 1st Cavalry Division was in Fort Bliss, which is where he's going to get sent to. They were responsible for kind of protecting the border, doing those mounted campaigns, but of course they're going to lose their horses eventually.
Yeah.
Going into World War II, it was kind of the death of the horse cavalry. But he's going to get sent to Fort Bliss, where he's assigned to G Troop of the 5th Cavalry Regiment, which is a famous regiment within the 1st Cavalry Division. And then he's going to go to his infantry school and be in that pre-war peacetime army.
Okay, so this is before Pearl Harbor.
Correct. He joined about a year before.
Okay, so he's ready to go beforehand. So he'll be locked and loaded when Pearl Harbor happens.
He's going to have a little head start. And then, of course, that is what happens. December 7th, 1941. He's been in the Army about a year, and then Pearl Harbor happens. So this is going to be that big change from maybe war's coming to, oh, my God, we're in the war now.
Everybody woke up.
Everybody woke up, and all these new recruits are going to be flooding in, and these new draftees. And he's got a little bit of experience, but, you know, it's going to be very different than the war we're going to face. Initially, the war in the Pacific was going very poorly. So World War II is a two-front war for the Americans. We're fighting the Germans in Europe and the Italians, you know. And then in the Pacific, we're fighting the Japanese Empire.
How did they break that down, man? Like, you have... There's one guy overseeing everything?
No, there's a lot of different guys.
But is there a group of generals that are doing the Pacific and then
Kind of. There's a lot of bickering and going back and forth and complaining over resources, but they actually went with a Europe first agenda. So we decided, even though we were attacked by the Japanese and they might be the more imminent threat because they're bounding across the Pacific, our government decided we're going to campaign in Europe, that's going to be our priority. So the guys in the Pacific were kind of and I don't want to say left with the leftovers, but they were not the main focus.
Okay, so there's a pot of resources, money, stuff like that. And
your war
most
chest,
of it's going to Europe.
More than
the
Pacific. And then you're going to have guys that are assigned to certain areas. So in the Navy, they're going to have the Pacific Squadron, and they're going to have the Atlantic. So they're going to be bickering back and forth.
Right.
And the sailors will be going in multiple places. But if you were a soldier in the Army, when you join, you don't know where you're going to get sent.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're going to get sent to Africa or Italy or France or Japan, the Philippines, or if you're going to be in Arkansas.
That's one of the most fascinating things about this war for me is like when before technology and stuff, you kind of look back at that time period as like this archaic, like, oh man, if they only had what we had now. But man, think about the organization, the planning, the scale of it, the communication to get everything lined up without internet, without satellite. You know what I mean? I'm sure they may have had satellite, maybe.
Not satellite, no.
Yeah, but I mean, just think about
radar,
the access to information and emails, like how quickly stuff can get done now.
Exactly. Yeah, it's General Patton's quoted, I hope I say it right. It's, compared to war, all other forms of human endeavor shrink to insignificance, meaning like during wartime, we'll come together and we can make anything happen, you know? And look, we're talking millions of guys. Just think about what it takes to go from a tiny little army to clothing, feeding.
That's what I'm talking about. And where to ship it, and who's going where, and how to keep
the logistics of that. That's what we were talking about on the Jack Lucas episode. He just jumped on he didn't like his order, so he just jumped on a train. Oh, how come they didn't find? Of course they didn't find him. Louis Millet, Millet went AWOL, and it took him 3 years for his paperwork to catch up to him. You know?
That's what I mean, dude. So like the paper, it's all paperwork too.
It's massive.
So stuff has to get mailed and it's
typed out.
Just thinking about the size of it is, I don't know how they were able to effectively run this.
Right, and then fortunes change and fortunes shift. So again, the Pacific War is going really poorly. Right, the Japanese are on the offensive. They haven't lost a land battle in 50 years. And they're pushing forward. So if we have a strategy and we're going to occupy this island group. Okay, crap, these 3 islands just fell. Now you're going to have to shift those resources and change and think about the fuel and the gasoline.
And then you have to shift.
Right.
And then how do you organize that? Without email, without internet.
Right.
Without, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the sailors are communicating on the ships and everything. And then if you have, a major battle and you lose a whole battle group or you lose certain ships.
Now you got to account for that.
Exactly. Now how do we go? Now how do we shift? So they're
who died, who's alive.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you got to just have so much stuff planned and organized.
For the families at home not knowing what's going on and all the logistics of everything. Yeah, war is chaos, but war is spectacular in what humans can do.
It's just amazing to me that they were, the fact that families found out that their loved ones passed away on this island on this day is amazing.
Well, a lot of it took a long, long time.
But still,
some of them never found out.
You would think that so much more of that would get lost.
And that's why every little person has to do their little job, regardless of what it is. Not everybody can be a hero on the front lines. If you're a yeoman typist and you're on a ship somewhere, you need to type up your proper report so everybody can get fed and everybody can get paid. I believe I could be wrong. I think it was on Peleliu, but they had a logistics mistake, and they put the water they were supposed to bring it ashore, they put it in the gasoline tank that had gasoline prior, so none of the water was drinkable. So everybody almost was dying of dehydration because of something as simple as that. You know, they didn't requisition the proper gear to put the water in because they thought they had it, you know, because they were already using it. Yeah, I believe it was Peleliu. I could be wrong, but think about those kinds of things. You know, some small little mistake or something, or you get faulty equipment, or you don't have the proper resources, or your food's not unloaded, and now your guys are starving.
It's just amazing that everybody was fed, and everybody, you know what I mean? It's just, I can't believe more bad things did not happen.
And then on top of that, you're fighting the enemy.
Yeah.
A vicious enemy.
Vicious enemy that you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to win the battles.
Right. In this case, it's the Japanese enemy, too. That's not stopping at anything. And
are they planning assuming they're winning the battles accordingly? Like anybody? Like when we're planning to go...
I would say no. You're going to have, your main battle plan, and then you're going to have a fallback plan. Okay, if this doesn't work, we'll do this. If we can't.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Just think about the mass of that.
Chaos, man.
Crazy.
Chaos.
Yeah.
When they had, like you said, look at Afghanistan right now.
Yeah, right.
That's what happens when planning fails, and when you fail to plan, and when you have no respect for how huge of an endeavor it is, and you think you're just going to be okay to, flippantly do something.
Yeah.
And look at the disaster it can create.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the Japanese are going to keep pushing forward. McGill and his troops are training in the States. You're going to kind of have clues to where you're going, but you're not going to know if you're going to go to Europe or the Pacific.
Are Americans worried that they're going to hit the West Coast?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the people near the beach are looking out and thinking, man.
Yeah, we have coastal artillery batteries all over. There's sightings of submarines on the Pacific and the Atlantic.
So it wasn't crazy to think in Malibu we might have a Japanese fleet coming through.
Yeah, later in the war it would be crazy to think. Yeah. But early on, I mean, again, they invaded Alaska. They hit Pearl Harbor. They destroyed our Pacific fleet. Damn. We're not defenseless, but we're not defensible.
So did we have troops along the whole coast?
We had troops, yeah. We had coastal artillery, and we had guys training, and we had, they were a skeleton crew, but they were, we were preparing. That was one of our battle plans, was to prepare for an invasion of the West Coast.
Wow.
Yeah.
People don't think about that.
Yeah, and they sure did then, though. That's where we see all these propaganda posters and everything. It was a terrifying,
you had to put the fear into people, huh?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And the Japanese were pushing forward until Midway, if you guys have seen the movie. Or I'm sure you haven't seen the movie.
I've heard of that, but I haven't seen it.
It's a newer movie. It's good. Midway was kind of when we turned the tide. We broke their code, and we learned where they were going to be, and then we started on the offensive. We started pushing back. On the land, it was Guadalcanal was our first major battle, our first major offensive. We had fought in I believe it was the 32nd Infantry had already done some fighting, but that was when we started pushing forward, and then we were going to be taking the offensive. In July of 1943, Troy McGill and his unit, the 1st Cavalry Division, is going to be sent to Australia. So he's been in the Army since 1940, and all these other guys are getting shipped out, but the 1st Cav is training as an organized unit. They're going to lose their horses, and then they're going to go to Australia and New Guinea, and they're going to get their jungle training there, and they're going to be, I have... their yearbooks from stuff. They're doing rodeos and stuff because they're all Texas cowboys, but they're in Australia doing that. But they're going to be learning from previous battles. They're learning from what the guys on Guadalcanal experienced. So this war is going to be a lot more real, and they're going to be kind of understanding what they're going to be facing. But
you're not just sending troops over.
Sometimes
they have to be organized and then sent somewhere to train for the specific battles that they're going to go.
So they're sending division-sized elements in certain places, and then they're sending replacements in others. But in this, the 1st Cavalry Division staying as an organic unit, essentially. So they're going to be, again, in Australia, they're going to be going over, and then they're going to be trying to face their combat, which is better than just getting thrown in as a replacement to a unit somewhere. You'd rather be with your guys that you've kind of been with for a while. Right.
Yeah.
So McGill's been in for a couple years, and despite the fact that the conditions in the Pacific are rough, man, it's hot, it's humid, it's miserable, it's jungle. So a lot of these guys are falling out just from the experience. But McGill's very tough. He's been a hard worker his whole life. He's worked in the oil fields. He's been a farmer. He's been all these things. And he's a little bit older because he was 26 when he joined. So he's probably about 29 now. He's almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
So because of this, he's able to help some of the younger guys. He's very strong. He's got good stamina, and that's helping him be a leader, in addition to the fact that he's got more experience and he's older. So these guys are going to be kind of flocking to him. Where others are struggling, he's going to be okay.
He's got the experience.
Yeah, so even if you don't aren't the greatest skill, which he was, but also just seeing him being able to, you're marching along and he can help pick you up and stuff. So guys,
it's just like jiu-jitsu, bro. You walk in and you find somebody that's been there a while, to take you under the wing.
And he's a natural leader with that. And probably because of his family was so large, he enjoyed that. He liked taking care of it. He felt a sense of responsibility and he wanted to help lead.
Right.
And he was writing letters home during this time, and you can tell a lot about soldiers by their letters. He never complained. He was never saying like, oh, it's miserable and it's hard. All he was saying is, I miss my family. I miss sitting around the table. I miss you guys. And he missed, fried chicken, the homemade fried chicken and all that kind of stuff. That's one of those things, whether it's ancient Athenians and Spartans in the Peloponnesian Wars or soldiers in Iraq or soldiers in Vietnam, you always miss your family and you miss those creature comforts and you're thinking about all those stupid little things. I used to write lists of all the foods I wanted as soon as I got out of boot camp or, as soon as I came home
What was
from
number
Iraq.
one?
I don't remember. It was weird stuff. I remember wanting like Pop-Tarts or something.
Really?
You just get these cravings, and we all did it. We had like giant lists of everything, and obviously you want like your favorite pizza place and stuff.
Yeah.
But in his case, he wants that homemade fried chicken, which I probably would want to. I want some Popeyes or whatever that's going to be. But they're going to be missing their family and missing the comforts of home for this long extended period. And another thing about World War II is this isn't Vietnam or Iraq where you're doing a year tour or a war's 15 months. You don't know when you're coming home. For the duration. That's what your enlistment paperwork says. For the duration.
That's what it says?
Yeah, that's what it says. For the duration.
So now, how do you think that changes the mental?
Well, you gotta, the only way home's through the enemy.
So the mentality of the soldier is different, I bet.
It's going to be very different from all I got to do, okay, I've been here 6 months, all I got to do is survive about 3 months, and then hopefully they'll take me out of the field, and then, I'll be, easy
You can only imagine how much more motivated and driven an army would be knowing, hey, we can't go home to see our loved ones until this is over.
Right. Berlin and Tokyo. That's it. Until you're setting foot on their ground and you're driving forward with that bayonet and the rifle, that's what it is.
Right.
So when they finally get sent to combat, they're going to get sent to the Admiralty Islands, which we were talking about a little bit. These are just going to be another island chain somewhere out in the Pacific that we would have never heard of. But strategically, they're important because it has an airfield, right? So also, if we take the Admiralties and we take Los Negros Island, we're going to cut off this major Japanese base because the island hopping campaign wasn't about taking every island. It was about cutting certain ones off and letting them flounder behind you. Yeah. So we're going to cut off this major Truk Island, it's called, Japanese base, and we're going to have an airfield. So this is going to set the stage, if we can take these islands, to retake the Philippines. And then it's going to set the stage for the main invasion of Japan, which is the ultimate goal, right? Damn. Everything is just one more step forward. So seemingly insignificant little dots of land are all huge in the grand scheme of things because they're all one step forward. Yeah,
sets up the next one.
Yeah, so on February 29th, 1944, they're going to take part in the invasion of Los Negros Island. And it's going to be 200 miles east of New Guinea. This is going to be these little islands with thick tropical rainforests, just like you think of like Vietnam. All you're seeing is the foliage and the big canopy, and you're moving inland and you can't see anything. And
is the enemy there bedded down?
Oh, of course, yeah. Anywhere the Japanese are in the Pacific, they're bedded down.
Yeah.
They're waiting for us. The shoreline is this thick mangrove swamp, which is, just knee to waist deep water for a long distance in, so you're kind of trucking forward, you can't move forward, and then it's going to open into this massive jungle. So it's a terrifying place to fight.
Oh, yeah.
Usually it does, but this is another one of those places where it favors the defenders over the attackers because we don't know where they are, and they can hide anywhere.
And you're stuck in waist-deep water.
Right, wading in, and then you're stuck into... it goes from day to night just from those jungle canopies and how dark it is. Think of like the Amazon rainforest or something like that. So it's going to be horrible. Prior to the invasion, we actually had Navy planes, recon planes flew over to see where the enemy was, and they came back and they said, we don't see any enemy. So MacArthur actually moved the invasion plan up, thinking, okay, great, this is going to be...
They were just all hidden.
Yeah, they were all hidden. So they said the island was clear, but of course it wasn't, right? So McGill's unit, the 5th Cavalry G Troop, is going to be the first ones to land on this island, right? So think about the anxiety you're having. Yeah, think about all this stuff, You haven't been in combat before. You don't know what to expect. You're hearing the casualty numbers. You're seeing all these things. You're looking out at that dotted island. They're telling you there's no enemy, but you don't know if there are.
And the Japanese are known for waiting till you're
in certain cases, they'll let you come in. In certain cases, they'll try to take us on the beach. And other times, they'll let you come inland. It depends on who's in charge there. But none of those options are good, whichever it is. And we, on the other hand, we're on these big ships floating out at sea, and you're thinking about it, and they're going to be giving you your last meal. Essentially, they're going to give you steak and eggs.
Really?
Yeah, every time time before the big battle, they would have these big meals, and then they would have prayer up on the deck, so everyone's going to be praying and, putting your wedding ring in an envelope and leaving it behind.
Holy shit, I never knew that.
Yeah, there's going to be a good chance you're not coming back, so you're going to probably be writing your farewells, and hoping that you can come back and get to it.
It's not a shock to them that they may die.
Yeah, and a lot of these islands we're going to be shelling from the ships, so they're going to be watching it, and you're going to be watching these invasions go in, like on Iwo Jima and stuff. So they know your stomach's just got to be in knots. And then to get down to the little landing craft, you're going to go down those cargo nets, so you're going to kind of go over the side of the ship and you're going to crawl down.
Physically climbing down?
Yeah, these big cargo nets.
Every soldier that goes ashore does that?
Correct. Depending on the kind of ships you are. The guy, there's going to be rows of guys going down. So if you're going too slow, they're going to be stepping on your hands and you're going to be moving down. If you fall off, you can fall into the water.
And you're hearing the battle ahead of you, right?
In some cases, yeah. On this one, there's no pre-invasion attack. So you're on the first group. Troy's going to be there. And then you're going to get into these little landing crafts that are bobbing in the water. And in this case, they have 37 men, and it's in this landing craft, and they're unarmored. So the sailors that are on there that are guiding them, they have guns to protect you, but there's no armor on them. So you're just kind of bobbing at sea, right? And then you're going to start bobbing over those big waves and going forward.
Do they have fixed machine gun positions and stuff set up?
Japanese?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So as they're going in, you're gonna be seasick. You're gonna have your nerves going, and in this case, it was overcast, so there was no airstrikes prior to like we normally would do. So it's gonna be slowed down. But there was a naval bombardment. So at 0817, the first wave lands, and this time we made a strategic risk. We've talked about it before. A lot of times there'll be a natural harbor or an inlet where you're going to land, so the Japanese are expecting you. We actually made a risky landing on, I think it's called Hainan Harbor, through the mangrove swamp. So the Japanese didn't expect us. We landed on the opposite side of the island, and it actually paid off. The Japs were looking the other ways, the Japanese, and didn't expect us, and we landed unopposed. So that first wave came out, and they were able to hit the ground. Yeah.
So they were looking somewhere else, ready.
Exactly. So Troy McGill and his unit start to push forward, and the Japanese are dug in, but they don't know they're coming. So now you're thinking, did we make it? Is everything going to be okay?
Oh, there's nobody here.
Right. But then the Japanese realize we're there, so they come out of their holes, and they're going to start firing with machine guns and their shore batteries, these big guns. So as the second wave's coming in, the firing is so intense and the crossfire is so intense that the second wave has to abort their attack. These sailors, the troops that are coming in, have to go back to the ship. So now G Troop and Troy McGill, they're stuck by themselves now on the island. So
the Japanese didn't see them land.
Right. They didn't expect them, but now they're able to. So now they're firing so many shore batteries and they're firing so many machine guns that nobody else can get in. So the guys on the ground are hugging the ground and trying to fight, and then our Navy starts just firing with everything they have. These giant destroyers are just pounding the Japanese position, trying to suppress the Japanese, trying to blow up these big guns. So imagine being an infantryman your first time in combat. You're hugging the shore, you're taking fire from the Japanese, you're seeing the Japanese fire out, and you're feeling the ground shaking. Yeah, all over you, and you're just trying to survive, and that's what
Did they ever set up snipers on the ship to take out the machine gun positions?
Way too far for that. Yeah, you who needs a sniper when you have a giant cannon?
Yeah, that's true.
I'll show you some videos of
and they're pretty accurate with that stuff?
Yeah, they're good. Yeah. They're good, yeah. And you're not going to be like pinpoint precision or anything, but you're pounding a whole area, and you're firing over our guys, so hopefully we don't hit our guys.
Oh, that's terrifying.
The third and fourth waves that push through, they're actually landing under fire. We're still getting hit while they're going. And there was actually a Yank magazine correspondent on one of the landing craft that was landing, and this was his correspondence of the attack. He said, As we neared the channel, the Navy man in the bow hollered for us to keep our heads down or we'd get them blown off. We crouched lower, swearing, and waited. It came with a crack. Machine gun fire over our heads. Our light landing craft shuddered as the Navy gunners hammered back and answered with the .30 caliber machine guns mounted on both sides of the barge. As we made the turn for the beach, something solid plugged into us. They got one of our guns or something, one GI said. There was a splinter the size of a $50 on the pack of the man in front of me. Up front, a hole gaped in the middle of the landing ramp, and there were no men where there had been 4. Our barge headed back towards the destroyer that had carried us to the Admiralties. White splashes of water were plunging through the 6-inch gap of the wooden gate. William Sabita, Seaman First Class of Wheeling, West Virginia, ducked from his position at the starboard gun and slammed his hip against the hole to plug it. He was firing a Tommy gun at the shore as fast as the wounded soldiers could pass him loaded clips. The water sloshed around him, running down his leg and washing the blood of the wounded into a pink frappe.
So
this
four
is a guy,
guys got killed?
Yeah, so this is, imagine a 37-man. They're bobbing forward. The sailors are firing with machine guns. These sailors are telling the
boat?
troops. Yeah, they're in their fixed position on this little landing craft, yelling at the GIs, get down or you're going to get your heads blown off. This newsman is hearing the machine gun firing, and then boom, a shell hits into the front of the landing craft and kills 4 troops that are inside. Now water's rushing in, so they can't even make it to shore. So this sailor plugs the hole with his own body and is firing this Tommy gun while they're giving him magazines while they're trying to get back. And the water and the blood is filling the bottom of the boat, and by the time they make it back to the ship. So that's kind of the intensity of what these guys are going through to kind of paint the picture of what they're
and still having to just push forward.
And this is just the landing craft. This is just to get to the shore.
Right. Fighting hasn't even started.
Exactly. So eventually, all the waves are able to get on, and we're able to get on to Los Negros Island. They're able to link up with McGill's unit, so they finally get these reinforcements. There's heavy rain at this point, and the visibility is very low, which is going to add to the terror.
They know the island.
They know the island, but combat's chaos regardless, man. And now that things are dark and you're hearing the animals and you're hearing stuff, so we're trying to push forward and we're locked into heavy combat. As soon as they hit the ground, they're taking sniper fire. Guys are going down. And like I said, most of these guys have never been in combat, so this is all new to them. And now your buddy's dying. What do you do? And your sergeant's yelling, you push forward, push forward. Damn. So they move forward to their objective, which is this airstrip. And they actually captured the airstrip on the first day. So our whole goal was to take this airstrip, but they actually, through courage and initiative and luck, they pushed forward and they took it. And it was later described as one of the most brilliant maneuvers of the war, this whole landing, because we landed where they didn't expect us. We kept coming under fire. We pushed forward. We got the Japanese off guard, and we were able to take this airstrip, which was an awesome, awesome feat.
Yeah.
Right? And McGill, in these early hours and these early days of the battle, he showed courage under fire. He had been a great leader in training, so he kept that forward. And he was also a crack shot. So if you're a young guy and you have this, 30-year-old guy next to you, and you're terrified, and you look up, and he's got courage, and he's taking a good firing position, and he's putting the enemy down with his rifle fire, you're going to start following him. And by this point, he's a squad leader. So they fight through the day and into the night. The jungle at night would just be horrific. So,
dude, just to camp in it without a battle.
Exactly. And like we've talked about on so many of these episodes, we dig in at night because if you're moving around, you risk getting killed by friendly fire. You risk getting your throat cut by the Japanese.
Yeah.
So we stay put and just assume anything that's moving is the Japanese, right? So we're going to bring it into this tight perimeter as close as we can get. You're sweating. You're scared. You're not going to even be able to have time
Mosquitoes,
to sleep. You're trying
bugs.
to dig in. This isn't even dirt, though. This is hard coral, right, in some places.
Yeah.
So they're trying to dig into that coral, and you're fearing a bonsai charge at any time. You're hearing the bugs. You're feeling the mosquitoes. You're sweaty. You're miserable. You're looking to somebody else.
God knows what you've witnessed throughout the day. You could have lost your best friends.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and your ears are still ringing. You're tired, and from all these stories you've heard of these Japanese attacks where they just attacks in waves. And that's
just think about what the correspondent said, dude, about losing those 4. That one incident would be like a huge moment in someone's life as a tragedy.
Exactly.
And it's like, no, you're not done. Keep going.
To them it was whatever. Get back in. Get on a different landing craft and go. Yeah. And those sailors are going to get on a different one and go in and back and forth too. And those 4 guys that were killed, they're just...
So imagine going through that trauma, dude. Mm-hmm. And then, you made it onto the beach, and now it's time to settle down for the night.
And life in combat is very cheap. And they're going to realize that very quickly. You're just a line on a ledger somewhere if you die. At 2 in the morning, at 2 in the morning, that first night, their greatest fear is going to come true. The Japanese are going to do their characteristic bonsai charge. So they're just going to come forward, and they're able to infiltrate the lines, and there's hand-to-hand fighting everywhere.
Well, you've talked about that before. What is the Japanese like?
Their goal is just to take out as many of you as they can and die with honor.
They wanted to kill 10, right?
Right. They strategically they want to win these battles, but if they can't,
they already lost the airstrip. They know the battle's probably lost.
They're not going to surrender to you, so they're going to kill as many of you can because as many of you, if any Americans they kill is one less American that's going to be killing their comrades on the next island, and any Americans they kill is going to be one less American that's going to be able to invade the home island. So they're going to just try to exact their toll. And like you said, 10-1 is the ultimate goal, and this is going to be what they're doing. So they're going to break through and infiltrate the line. And hand-to-hand combat, I say it all the time, is a failure. That means that something went wrong. And it's not like the movies where, you're so badass, you're just going to be punching people. No, you're going to swing your rifle once, and then somebody else is going to be stabbing you in the side, and you're going to be trying to go in after him, and you're going to be firing your rifle at close range. And
it's like all those war movies. It's like everybody has like a fixed enemy.
Right.
All your guys have one guy that they're fighting. It wouldn't be like that. If I was fighting in battle with you and you're struggling with someone, I'm going to shoot them or stab them.
Exactly. And if you take me down, I'm going to run up and shoot you in the back of the head, or I'm just going to stab you in the side. And there's no honor.
It's going to be 7-on-1. It's going to be,
They're going going to be overwhelming. Guys are going to be getting burned to death with flamethrowers. Guys are going to be being stabbed with bayonets. They're going to be getting killed with knives. And
people are going to be getting killed by a friendly, dude.
Exactly.
Because you don't know. You can't see.
If you get caught in front and a machine gun position opens up, they can't not kill you. You're sorry, but we have to defend the line behind. So this is what these guys are dealing with. And this is, Troy's 30, but some of these guys are 18, 19, and this, they just were baptized into combat the day before or what have you. But they're able to survive through the night, and there's tough fighting throughout that whole night and into the next day. So over the next 4 days, the Japanese are just putting intense pressure on the Americans because they want this airstrip back. They have to get this airstrip back, right? So if you're out in the forward area, it's just constant resistance and bonsai attacks. And this is mentally wearing down our troops. Because when you have wave after wave at you and you're mowing bodies down with machine guns or you're firing with
when does it stop?
When does it stop? And
where are these people coming from?
Exactly. And I had 10 buddies here. Now I have 8. Now I have 6. It's going to be me at some point. We've only been here 4 days and we're losing.
Your luck is only going to go so far.
And the Japanese, we are fighting to win the war. We are fighting to survive. The Japanese are already dead in their minds. They don't care. They've made peace with whatever they believe in, and they have a tradition, this Japanese tradition of death with honor and death for the emperor.
It's that samurai thing, right?
That samurai code. It's a perverted form of Bushido is what they fought with, right? But and in addition to this, while we were fighting, one of the unique things on Los Negros is we found that they had large stores of beer and sake, so they were drunk while they were making these attacks too, which added an element of fear, and it probably added an element of them being able to take some of the pain, these alcohol-fueled attacks, right?
Yeah,
so
takes away your inhibition, man.
Exactly. So that's what these guys are facing, and it's day after day, and you're fatigued, and you're hungry. You were talking about logistics earlier. You're not eating good food. You're eating nasty, greasy sea rations. Your stomach's already knotting up from fear and anxiety, and you're probably losing your bowels.
Shitting your pants.
And then you're putting this nonsense into it, these high-calorie, disgusting, greasy foods. But that's what they have to do, and you have no choice but to move forward. So McGill and his men keep fighting, and they're able to break through, and they break this line of Japanese attack. They end up getting moved near the, I believe it's pronounced Momote airstrip, and they're going to be, this is the one that we've already taken, but they're going to be set up in a position to defend the airstrip now, because the airstrip was damaged by our artillery attacks, by the Japanese, by the fighting. So now we're going to bring in the Seabees. You remember what those are?
Yep.
The construction battalions. The Navies they're going to come in while they're still potentially under fire and be moving with their bulldozers and stuff and building this airstrip so we can fight with it. That's another just part of this, right? And some of the Seabees were older guys.
It's just a machine, dude.
Right, it's exactly. You just move forward. So they have to protect this area. So they're going to dig in. McGill and his men are going to dig in to fortify these positions. Meanwhile, the Japanese are planning to retake the airstrip, and what Troy and his men don't know is that they're right at the center of the Japanese attack plan. So where him and his 8-man, including him, that's an 8-man foxhole, they're right at the forefront. They're right in the breach of where the Japanese are planning to break through, come around, and try to get this
he's the
airstrip
point man
back.
of that.
He's going to be the point man, which is often the case in these. And again, if some of these sound familiar, it's because this is what it takes to be in a position that earns you the Medal of Honor. On March 3rd, 1944, they're going to be readying for their long night. They're going to be digging in again. Troy's going to be a squad leader, so he's going to be moving around his guys, trying to give them encouragement. You stay up. I need 50-50. You're up. You're asleep.
Now, do they know that there's still a well?
Yeah. We know we haven't taken the island. Okay. We have a long way to go, but we know that this is the front lines.
Yeah.
So we know the Japanese are in front of us. We know everything in front of us is considered enemy, and everything behind us is relatively safe, and it's considered friendly. We don't know how many of them are out there, but we know there's still a lot of them. Right?
Yeah.
We have.
Do they know how many Japanese were on the island?
They would have had a good idea. I don't know it offhand, but they're not going to have exact amounts.
Yeah.
But you can tell by things in the battle, too. Those bonsai charges, do they all still have rifles? Are they all still firing? Or are they down to bamboo spears? Or are they down to, those are going to be indications, too. So by now, they're still fighting pretty full on. So we know that they have more fight in them. March 3rd, 1944, at 2100 hours, which is 9 o'clock, a single Japanese plane is going to fly over their position and start dropping bombs. So it drops 8 bombs, which isn't super, catastrophic, but it's kind of going to be one of those eerie things you're looking up, and it actually cut their communication lines. And then after that, the yellow flares went up from the Japanese position. So imagine the fear of the night, imagine those planes, and then these flares go up, and then the Japanese open up with mortar attack, and then they charge forward with the infantry. And these Japanese soldiers, they're not coming through the bush, they're not crawling, they're just running, and in some cases walking through the open area. And not only that, they're singing, right? They're charging, they're yelling bonsai, but they're also singing. So think how terrifying that would be. These guys have no fear. It's like a zombie attack, except for they're skilled warriors, right? So the American positions are going to be fighting with everything they have. We're going to be pumping rifle rounds into them. Our machine guns are firing so much that the bodies are stacking so high, they have to run out and clear the bodies to get their sector of fire because there's so many of them. But they're able to fight off the attack, right? We do what we're supposed to. We take good defensive positions and we fight them back. And their tactics are bad. That's not a good tactic other than fear and trying to get the body. So we're able to fight it off. By now, it's been a week of fighting, a week of fear and a week of exhaustion. You know, these guys are just miserable. Their nerves
they don't
are shot.
rotate
They're
out.
going to be shaking. Well, eventually you can, but not in this. This has only been a week. So,
Yeah.
you know, you're going to be on the line for 30-plus days, depending, or in these smaller battles until you take the island. We can't. We
And you're
don't have the
talking
troops.
hundreds, maybe thousands of people that you've had to kill.
Exactly. Yeah, as a unit.
Yeah.
There's going to be the dead everywhere, like we talk about on all these episodes. Japanese bodies, we're not going to stop and bury them in the middle of the body. So when you're in your foxhole, you're going to be looking at them all night, you know, and your mind's going to be playing tricks on you, and they're going to be rotting, and they're going to be stinking, and there's going to be crabs eating them, and bugs, and birds, or wherever you're at, depending on the wildlife.
Yeah, they don't ever hear about that, but it's got to smell absolutely horrific.
Smell horrific. Well, even
you're having to eat.
Rotting jungle smells horrific, regardless of whether or not there's bodies in it. But yeah, can you imagine if you've never taken a life before and you shoot someone and he's staring at you from 20 yards away?
Yeah.
You know,
He's
and
3
you're
feet
seeing
from
him
your foxhole.
deteriorating and he's staring at you and he's staying there, right? That's what these guys are dealing with. This is the microcosm of the war. If you zoom out, this is going on all over. But if you zoom in, you know, in March of 1944, that's where we're at. On March 4th, 1944, at 0400 hours, by this point, they've been on the island for about a week, and Troy's 30 years old at this time. He's a 30-year-old squad leader. These guys are exhausted from fighting. They've had no sleep. They're miserable. All they want to do is get off this island, but like Audie Murphy said, they're probably numb, and they're walking around in this state of just misery because you're never really awake and you're never really asleep. At 0400 hours, you know, early in the morning, they hear, again, those Japanese battle cries, right? They hear the Japanese screaming. They hear the bonsai. So everybody's going to snap to. You're going to grab your rifles. And 200 Japanese soldiers are charging at this 8-man foxhole where Troy and his guys are. So there's going to be fighting all over, but there's directly 200. So McGill's grabbing his guys, and he's saying, get up, fight, fight. So they start putting rounds down range. They start fighting back, and they start doing everything they can. They're fighting back as hard as they can, and they drive back the initial attack. So the Japanese, they're able to cut so many of them down, these Japanese soldiers retreat all the way back to the airfield. So Troy's checking his men. They're checking their ammo. They're catching their breath. They're kind of realizing what happened. And as soon as they are figuring it out, the Japanese attack again. So this second wave of a bonsai attack, they just keep on coming. You get hit and you get rocked, and then they come back forward. So they're firing with rifles. They're firing with everything they have. They're coming at you with bayonets. They're coming at you with knives, their fists, you know, grenades. Troy and his men are fighting back as hard as they can, but this second wave is much more devastating than the first. So after the second wave, they're able to push it back again, but Troy looks around, and in his 8-man hole, 5 men are dead. Okay,
oh,
so 5 of the 8 men are dead. 1 man is seriously wounded, and then Troy and another man, I believe his name was PFC Bentz, are not wounded. Okay, so he's looking around, and their ammo is almost gone.
So they're not just picking people off. These Japanese are shooting back.
They're shooting back, and if they rush into your position, it's desperate fighting. 5 out of these 8 guys are dead, but they're in this vanguard position, right? Behind them, as always is the case, is your greater lines. It's the command post. It's what you have to protect. In front of you is the enemy, and in your hole is your friends. So right now he's got 5 dead guys, and he's got 2 guys he's got to think about. So he has to make a decision, right? His position is vital. He has to defend this position, but their ammo is almost gone. So he has to think, I can either run for it, you know, I can help PFC Bentz grab this other guy and carry him back, or I can stay and fight. If I stay and fight, it's virtually suicide at this point, right? But Troy has to make this decision. So what he does is he tells Bentz, grab the wounded guy and get the hell out of here while I defend you, right? Which is, you can imagine, you know, what that sounds like. But he's literally offering his life to cover their retreat. He knows he's going to die if he stays there, but he just watched 5 of his guys die, 5 of his guys that he's been training with for years. He just watched one of his guys get wounded.
He knows the odds aren't good.
He can see the PFC, and he can see how terrified he is, so he knows he has to give them a chance, right? So imagine PFC Bentz looking at your squad leader, and he's telling you, grab him and get out of here.
He's your hero.
Yeah, he's your hero. So they're going to say that final goodbye, and Bentz is going to pick up the wounded man, and he's going to run as hard as he can. He's going to run as hard as he can back to that command post. And Troy is going to stay there and cover his retreat. So the last thing Bentz sees is Troy firing into the charging enemy. And Bentz gets back to the command post, and he drops the wounded guy off. And he's desperate because he wants them to go help his friend. So he reported, he said, there were over 150 Japs that came right at us. We saw we couldn't hold them, and Sergeant McGill told me to pull back and drop to another bunker. When I left, all the men in my squad had been killed or wounded except McGill and myself. So Bence is desperate. Bence is begging them. Bence is telling them, we need to go up there. We need to send reinforcements. We need to get there. But these commanders in the command posts are looking around, and they have to make a decision as well, right?
Yeah.
And they say, we don't have the bodies. We can't. McGill, you know, God bless him, but he's on his own essentially.
Jesus.
So they have to tell Bence,
and he doesn't have ammo.
he doesn't. He's running very low on ammo. So they tell Bence, you know, basically grab a rifle and fill into another position, defend the line, because they know that if they rush up and try to defend McGill, they're going to get cut down doing so. They have to defend this perimeter as well. So they're
so it's
basically
not a
abandoning
cowardly
him.
thing.
It's not at all. It's a realistic
Smart.
decision that you have to make. So they start bracing themselves because they know that once the Japanese overcome McGill's position, they're going to be coming through with this wave of over 100 men is still coming. So they have to brace for this attack. Meanwhile, McGill's still in his position, and he's still fighting. But McGill's a squad leader, and he's a crack shot. He's grown up in Tennessee, Texas, and Oklahoma. So he's fast as flying, but accurate as everything. In a gunfight, you need to take your time in a hurry, right? So he's taking well-aimed shots. He's getting down as low as he can in the foxhole. He's not just shooting like crazy because these M1 Garand clips only have 8 rounds. You know, I don't know if he had any carbines, but that'd be a 20-round magazine.
So it's 8 rounds and then dumping and going.
Yeah, these are 8-round clips. And then the carbines are 20-round magazines. So you fire that, you put that in your Garand, you go, and then you get on to the next one, and you only have as many as you brought to that position. So he's trying to make every shot he can count. As the Japanese are coming forward, he's taking good aim.
If you're firing perfectly,
yeah,
you're only taking out 8.
And then
that's perfect.
As they're still rushing, you have to reload before they can get on top of you, right? Imagine what that would feel like. Imagine you literally have your comrades behind you, the bodies of your friends below you. You're going to be stepping on them as you're firing, as you're moving around in the foxhole, and you have a charging fanatic enemy in front of you. Everything is going to be telling you to run. Every part of your body is going to make you want to drop your rifle and cower or just flee. But he's standing his ground, right? He's fighting against all that. He's fighting against his complete human nature.
8 rounds at a time.
He's just firing forward. 8 rounds at a time. You can imagine him probably yelling into the darkness. You know,
think about how fast
screaming at these
with
guys.
a charging enemy,
exactly
100 plus deep. How fast 8 rounds go? If you guys have ever been to the range, boom, 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 boom.
But he's going to be firing boom, boom, because he's lining up those sights. Because every round he fires, a Japanese soldier's going down. But every round he fires, that's one less round that he has to be able to defend himself for this oncoming wave. And he's able to drive the enemy back. But again, they're going to make another charge. So it's not fully light, and he keeps firing as they're retreating. And then he realizes he's completely out of ammo. And as he's in the foxhole, he sees the Japanese, and they're readying themselves for the final charge. So he looks around, he's checking all the dead, he's checking all these left behind equipment. There's no ammo left, and the Japanese start coming forward. So now the only thing he can do is he can either play dead and hope they overrun him, or he can run. He can make a run for it, right?
Yeah.
So that's when Troy decides he's going to do exactly that. Troy decides to run. But he doesn't run to the rear. He grabs his rifle and he turns it around like a club. And as the Japanese come forward and they get within 5 yards of his position, Troy charges out of the position and runs directly at the enemy.
Holy shit.
And as he runs, he's swinging his rifle and he's stabbing and he's doing everything he can. And that was the last time Troy was seen alive.
Holy shit.
Meanwhile, the men in the rear are bracing for the attack. They know that these 100 or so Japanese are going to kill Troy, and they're going to get through, and they have to be able to defend themselves. But as the sun comes up, there's quiet, right? And as they keep waiting and waiting, the Japanese never come. So what they realize is they never made it past Troy's position. So when the sun finally comes up and they get reinforcements, they move forward, and they find Troy's mangled body. And Troy's dead, but he's surrounded by 105 dead enemy Japanese soldiers, and several of them have been killed. They have cracked skulls from his rifle where he charged into the enemy.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so by Troy's last stand, his courageous last stand, he was decisive in defending this airstrip. One man was able to hold off this position, right? Initially, the 8 men, but one man in the end was able to hold this position, which allowed us to get reinforcements to defend this airstrip, which allowed us to eventually take this island, which is just one more building block in the Pacific War.
Damn, so his positions have got 105 guys.
105 guys, and several of them, again, had cracked skulls from the end of his rifle or his fist or his boots or whatever it was when he went down in that melee. We don't know for certain, but I doubt he survived the whole battle unscathed until he charged out of that hole. He might have been wounded prior to. You know?
Of course.
But again, when they got within 5 yards, he ran directly at them. You can imagine the Japanese expecting to see somebody cowering or retreating, and him just running with gritted teeth towards them.
They probably respected him.
Oh yeah, as they were dying.
Samurai thing, you know.
His actions were so spectacular that General MacArthur himself personally recommended him for the Medal of Honor, which
that gets it put through pretty quick. I would imagine
that's going to be a guarantee at that point. And like I said, eventually we were able to take that island, so that's huge. You know, just one more story of the Pacific.
Badass dude.
And again, greatest unit in the history of the armed forces. He was actually the first Medal of Honor recipient in World War II. He ended up being buried in the Philippines with full military honors, and then eventually he was repatriated to the United States. We talked about how big his family was. At the time of his death, he had two brothers who were in the Pacific fighting. One was in the Army and one was in the Navy. He had a sister in the Women's Army Corps, the WACS, and he had 11 nephews who were fighting in the service as well.
Damn, so just a
huge family. That's, again, a microcosm of the war. One of his nephews was actually on board a ship in the Pacific, the USS Colorado, when the Armed Forces radio announced his actions, and they said, you know, Troy McGill are in the Medal of Honor, and they read his citation, and he didn't hear it, and one of the other guys on ship said, hey, Mac, one of your kinfolk was awarded the Medal of Honor, and his nephew, they all crowded around the radio to listen to it again, and he said he wasn't sure if it was uncle or not, but they said G Troop 5th Cav, and he knew that it was his uncle, so he knew that had happened, and he said, it was the most incredible thing we had ever heard. I never would have thought Uncle Troy was capable of doing what he did. He was by far the nicest and most mild-mannered of the McGills. So think about what that says about the rest of the McGills, right? His sister accepted the Medal of Honor at a ceremony in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then in 1951, he was removed from the Philippines and reburied in the Knoxville, Tennessee.
That's awesome.
So that's the story of Troy McGill. His story's not super well remembered. Again, I see it pop up on the internet a lot, but if you go to research, there's not a whole lot there. But to me, that shows... It makes it even greater to me, you know, that somebody that killed with his men 105 Japanese soldiers and charged into the face of oncoming death. Yeah. We don't even remember him, right? Know. But this is just one more guy. How many other guys were in the Pacific like that? One of the nicknames that they later called him is the Samson of the Pacific. Are you familiar with the story of Samson from the Bible? The book of Judges.
No.
Samson was a Nazarite. He was a biblical hero, an Israeli hero, but he fought an army of Philistines and he killed 100 men with the jawbone of an ass. He destroyed an army by himself. So that's Samson. So Troy is the same. He single-handedly fought off this army just with, you know, his strength and courage and charged forward into him. So the Samson of the Pacific, they call him.
How awesome would it be to witness that? Jesus,
from a bubble of a time traveler or something, you know, where you're not in any danger.
Yeah, they can't see you, but you can just witness it.
Exactly. You can't interact, but you can watch.
I wonder how many of these stories are actually downplayed. You know, because a lot of people talk about, oh, they're exaggerated. Mm-hmm. I bet you a lot of these are actually a lot more. J.R.
McKinney, they split the difference on the number.
Yeah.
They said they believe he killed over 100, but they downplayed it to 50. Desmond Doss, the same thing. They said, I heard you saved over 100 men. He said, no, it's probably about 50, so they wrote 75 on his citation. You know, it's God. And on this one, you can just. You almost wanted like a ticking clock that way, you know, watching the ammo get lower and lower and just all those decisions he would have and all those breaks in the combat when he would be thinking, is he going to run now? No, he's looking for more ammo. Is he going to run now? No, he's digging in. Is he going to run now?
And just, I think the thing that's probably downplayed the most is like the intensity of the fire or the intensity of the enemy's attack. You know what I mean?
And we can never replicate that.
If you're in a foxhole and 5 of your guys get killed,
right?
It's intense, man.
Right, their blood's going to be on you.
That's
their
what I mean.
Going to be around, and they didn't all die outright. They might have been screaming and moaning and holding their guts and crying.
And how close were those shots to hitting you?
Exactly.
If you're all in the same foxhole, man,
your clothes are going to be torn by shrapnel and grenades. You know, it's going to be stinking. You know, the cordite.
That's the thing that these citations don't really capture.
Exactly, and the smell and the fear and the fatigue. You know, that's a big thing I always tell people. When you watch the movies, I could do that. Well, maybe you could, but could you do it after you haven't taken a shower for 3 weeks and you jumped in the water and you're miserable and there's sand and there's grit in your boots and it's tearing
it's like jiu-jitsu, bro. You
know?
you go spar for 5 minutes and you go, oh yeah, I could have done that. But when you're in that 5-minute spar in the 5th minute, all you're thinking about is like, oh God, I'm done.
And when you first start and the tops of your feet or the skin's worn off because you're not conditioned to it yet. That's all these kinds of things, and it's at its worst. And someone's literally trying to take your life, and they'll stop at nothing to take your life. And we can have all the technology in the world, but it's not going to stop this guy from trying to take your life.
Think about what they would do for a cold Gatorade from that time machine position.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a first Cav trooper in Vietnam who wrote songs, and they actually have an album. But he said one of the lines is, "What I'd give for an ice cold beer, an ice cold Coke, or just a piece of ice." It starts with, "I want a beer."
Yeah.
Man, I take a Coke. Man, I just want a piece of ice. You're miserable.
Man.
It's those little creature comforts you don't think about.
Yeah. That's an amazing story.
Yeah. So that's the story of another first Cav hero, the greatest fighting unit
It's a
in the
real
history of the world.
story. God.
Troy McGill.
Troy McGill. That was awesome. Good story, man.
So cool, man.
Thanks for everybody that's watching and following along and listening. Please like and subscribe. It helps us in the algorithm or whatever. We're old, so we don't really know. As I
Hit
said last time.
that little bell.
The notification bell. Something like this.
Yeah, something, whatever that may be.
And that'll keep us highlighting these heroes. So
and leave us a comment so it keeps it up. But
the more comments you leave, the more it throws it into the recommended for people so they can check it out.
Cool.
All right.
All right,
Thanks
guys.
so much.